Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alex and today I am going to be filming my mid-year freakout tag, which is actually on time this year. Last year, if you missed it, I filmed in August, which is decidedly not in the middle of the year. And of course, the moment that I needed to film this video, it decided to thunderstorm outside, so if you can hear that, I apologize in advance. I love tracking my stats, especially when I'm ahead for the year, which I currently am. It gives me that little serotonin boost, so I'm excited to be able to share these with you. So far this year, I have read 27 books. My current reading goal is to read 50 by the end of December. And if I accomplish that, it will be the most books that I have ever read in 365 days. So far, I am slightly ahead with 2 extra books read than what I technically needed to be on track, but that could easily change. Oh, big thunder. That could easily change in the next 6 months because I never know what life is going to throw at me, but I am very hopeful, I'm being optimistic that I will actually be able to reach my reading goal. This is the list of all of the books that I've read so far in the order that I read them. Up first is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doty. The Three-Body Problem by Session Leo. Educated by Tara Westover. Homegoing by Ya Jossi. Bunny by Mona Awad. The Dark Forest by Session Leo. Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling, which currently has a bookmark in it because Keaton's reading it. Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Mad Honey by Jennifer Finney Boylan and Jodi Picoult. Prime Deceptions, also by Valerie Valdez. The first 5 volumes of Monstrous by Marjorie Leo and Sana Takeda. World War Z by Max Brooks. Strangeville School is Totally Normal by Darcy Miller and Brett Helquist. And lastly, White Elephant by Julie Langsdorff. Many of the books I don't have physical copies of because I either donated them to the library already or I utilize the library to borrow them. Not that I have any shortage of books that I already own, but that's neither here nor there. So far this year, I have read 8,933 pages, with the top moods of my reading being dark, adventurous, mysterious, and emotional, which lines up honestly near perfect with my reading last year. I am nothing if not consistent in my taste. Storygraph says that I have read no slow-paced books this year, which is definitely a lie because I can think of at least one that I absolutely would say was slow. I don't think that these paces are based off of what I tell Storygraph. The book was paced for me. It's based off of an average vote of what everybody says for that book, so I don't think it's perfect, but I would agree that the bulk of the books that I've read have been medium paced. For page count, the 300 to 499 page range ekes out just a little bit ahead of under 300 pages. I have only read 2 books that are over 500 pages so far this year, and that is because both of them that I read put me in a reading slump, and I am currently fighting my way back to enjoying larger novels. I really do love big books, but when the only 2 that you pick up for a year just make you feel so exhausted when you read, it explains, at least for me, why I'm gravitating towards shorter books. For fiction and nonfiction, my graph matches nearly identically with last year, where I have read 3 nonfiction books so far. I had one other that I started and ended up DNFing because I just couldn't connect with it, and I'm recognizing for my own reading taste that in order for me to enjoy a nonfiction book, I have to be able to relate with the subject matter because I typically read autobiographies, so I need to know who the person is that I'm reading from, otherwise their recounting of their life just doesn't have as much of an impact on me. So had I not DNF'd that one book, the number would have been higher. The genre breakdown is very different from last year, with horror being first and sci-fi being second, which is actually my regular reading style. So last year, it was actually kind of weird for me, with my 2 favorite genres being much lower down on the list, and this year I'm back to the typical things that I enjoy reading. So horror, I've read 9 books, I've read 6 sci-fi, 3 nonfiction, 4 if you're counting fantasy and magical realism together, 2 and 2 if they're separated, 2 historical fiction, 1 contemporary, 1 thriller, and 1 literary fiction. For most read authors, this is another example of Storygraph being really weird because Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda are both with the Monstrous volumes, and they were a part of all 5 of them that I read, so I don't know why Sana Takeda wasn't getting her credit for those books, but she wasn't. But each one of them got 5 there. Sushin Liu is at 2, and Valerie Valdez is at 2. Number of books and pages is always one of my favorite graphics because it really shows which months are just rocking out and which ones I had a pretty strong dip. So looking at this in April was my lowest month, which makes sense because that was the month I was in my worst reading slump. And then it started to pick back up in May, and June ended up being my best month so far this year. June has been an awesome reading month, and I'm very happy with the way that it has gone, and I hope that I can continue that throughout the rest of the year, because if June sets the tone for all the rest of my reading, I'm going to be doing a really good job by the time we get to December. My average star rating for the books is much lower than normal, so at this point it's at 3.98 stars, but the thing about that number is it's including, again, the 5 Monstrous books, which personally I think skewed the data for me a little bit because they're graphic novels, they're shorter to read, I really loved them. 3 out of the 5 of them ended up getting 5 stars, so I decided I was going to do a little experiment, and I actually removed those 5 from my star rating to see what my new average was, and it ended up coming out to a brutal 3.81 stars, whereas last year, by the end of the year, my average star rating was 4.2. So I have been reading a lot more kind of middle of the road, just meh or mediocre books than I was in 2023. Definitely hoping that it's going to pick up and be better as the year goes on and I get more 5-star reads, or at the very least more 4 and 4.5 stars. I also wanted to spend a little bit of time with each of the books that I have enjoyed the most so far, and those are books that are either in the 4.5 or 5-star category, and I am beginning with Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Doughty. This book is awesome for people who are fans of Caitlin Doughty, who is also a YouTuber. She is a huge success. She's been on TED Talks, and she's honestly very funny, and I understand her sense of humor because I've been watching her for years. I would recommend this book to fans, but for people who haven't watched her content and don't understand her sense of humor, if you were to read this book, you may find her to be crass sometimes when she's talking, and that's because she's a mortician. She's talking about death, which is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if you don't want somebody to make jokes about people dying, this probably isn't the book for you. Chilling Effect is a combination of a serious and funny space opera story that leans heavily on pop culture references like Mass Effect and Portal. So if you're fans of series like that, you may enjoy this book. Educated is the heartbreaking recounting of Tara Westover's life, where she went from being completely uneducated to eventually earning a doctorate, and what this did to cause a strain between her and her extremist Mormon family. The best parts of this book, in my opinion, are when she was growing up with her family and getting to hear the stories of what her everyday life was like. It slows down a little bit as you get into her college education, but I still found it to be fantastic, and overall would definitely recommend this with a 4.5 stars. Then we have Monstrous Volume 2, which is where the story really starts to pick up and things kind of become a little bit less confusing. Not my favorite of all of them, but definitely where I started to recognize that this series was worth the read. Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus is heartwarming and genuinely funny. Avon is the perfect character to both teach us about her genetic condition and how somebody born without arms can live an enriching and confident life. For 5-star reads, I will go ahead and say Monstrous Volumes 3 through 5. I have been enjoying this series immensely once I got to Volume 3. I am super bummed that I can't read the rest of them that are out right now because I can't buy them, as it's a no-buy year, and I can't get them at the library because I think they only have through maybe Volume 2, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up and wait. This series is incredibly dark, it's emotional, it's graphic, it's violent, but the artwork is beautiful. Like, this is honestly one of the most breathtaking looking graphic novels I've ever seen. I think the artists have done an amazing job. I'm really excited to see where the story goes. If you are somebody who can handle the violence and dark nature of this series, I would highly recommend it. The Three Body Problem got its own video, so if you were interested in listening to me exposit at great length about this, you should definitely go check it out. But if not, I can say that this is an intellectually stimulating book with a lot of unique concepts. I did not enjoy the second book, The Dark Forest, nearly as much as I enjoyed this one, but I am currently slowly working my way through Death's End, and it does show a lot more promise, fortunately, than The Dark Forest. So I think that there is the potential that the series could end on a high note. Born a Crime by Trevor Noah is the only nonfiction book I've ever read that I gave 5 stars. It's remarkable because Trevor Noah is a remarkable person. Reading that book, I felt like I learned so much about his life and how he became the man that he is today, and honestly, just the journey and the path that he went on. I could never imagine living the life that he did. There's great commentary. It's genuinely hilarious while also talking about topics that are kind of difficult to hear. And I would recommend that if you're interested in nonfiction and you really enjoy Trevor Noah, that you give his book a chance. And then last but certainly not least is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, which is the story of 4 generations of one Korean family trying to make their way in a country that doesn't want them. Before reading this book, I had no idea about the relationship between Japan and Korea, and I feel like I learned a lot from this story. The author moves seamlessly between different generations, and I feel like this book flows so beautifully. Admittedly, it can be quite sad at times. I would argue that this is a pretty tragic novel, so it might not be for people who don't enjoy reading things that are sad. I personally do enjoy reading books like that, and I loved this a lot. I absolutely adore Pachinko. For an update on my 24 books of 2024, I will say that I'm beyond being behind to the point where it's just a giant joke. And I'm working on going through my books right now. Actually, the books behind me are the ones that I have for my 24 books of 2024. You can see I have a significant number of them left. I am diving into those. I've already begun to start focusing on them again. So with any luck, I'll get through as many by the end of the year as possible, but no guarantees that I will be able to read all of them. Please let me know down in the comments how you are doing for your own goals for the year. I find statistics to be a lot of fun. I'm a giant nerd that way, and I hope that you enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed making it. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, that you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.